Next week, Chairman of the Caribbean Community, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, the Honorable Alan Chassanet, will lead a delegation to the United Nations office in Geneva, Switzerland, where he's expected to focus on sustainable development and climate change. Now, during an interview with our news team, Prime Minister Chassanet referenced the recent Caricom heads of government that was held in St. Lucia, and that was in July, where he met with the United Nations Secretary General as well as the Prime Minister of Norway. He says the Caricom delegation plans to stress the impact of climate change at that upcoming meeting in Geneva.
Two very outstanding leaders when it comes to this issue of climate change, and it's for us to continue to highlight the deficiencies that we have as small island developing states. So in the case of the Bahamas, which have a very high per capita GDP, this is still a crippling event, and therefore we're appealing to the other countries that are in control of our own destiny, because it's only through mitigation on their part, meaning reducing of emissions, that we can ultimately solve this problem. But in the meanwhile, we have to accept the fact that this is our reality, and that we're seeking assistance to be able to build the resilience in our countries to be able to help out. We have to accept the fact that this is going to be a recurring issue, and that many assets and, more importantly, people's lives are being put in jeopardy.
Chairman Chassanet also told our news team that the region must always be in a state of preparedness for any natural disaster, particularly when governments emphasize the need for mandatory evacuations.
As prime ministers and heads of governments, that we're ultimately responsible for the lives of people in our country. And when we ask people to evacuate areas or to stay in curfew, there's a reason for that. And that these storms are incredibly unpredictable. I mean, we saw in the case of Dominica where Maria, within 7 hours, became a Category 1 to Category 5. We've seen with Dorian that's slowing down to 0 miles an hour and staying over a particular area in excess of 36 hours. You can't put that in a model, and we cannot ever build enough resilience to be able to protect people sufficiently. So we have to be in a state of preparedness, and that when we know that something is coming, we have to understand the magnitude of what potentially can happen, and therefore saving people's lives at that instance becomes priority number one.